Hello and welcome to the CanCulture podcast. I'm Zack Pothier. In a little bit, we're going to be talking about hot dogs. But first, the Toronto Raptors. So I'm joined now by Nick Raponi to discuss the Raptors' recent success. They won last night, at least as of recording time. They won last night, defeating the Brooklyn Nets and have taken a 3-2 series lead in their series. Here to break it all down is Nick Raponi. Nick, how are they doing so far?
Um, they're showing they're not too consistent. In all honesty, the whole season they were the best fourth quarter or one of the best fourth quarter teams in the league. And then you see them now; they're just blowing leads. Like even last night, yeah, it's great they won, but they were up 26 points at one point and only ended up winning by two. So that's a little concerning. The fact that they're blowing leads like that, but at least they're holding on in the end. Like you look at the Jays, whole different topic, but they're not even holding on to the leads. But the Raptors, at least they're holding on to their leads. I mean, it's a best of seven series, so all they got to do is win one more. It's in Brooklyn, which will definitely be tough because the Brooklyn crowd is tough. But you know what? A lot of credit has to go to Kyle Lowry, the point guard. He's carrying this team. They call him the Bulldog. He's only 6 feet tall, which is very undersized for a basketball player, and he's really, really carrying this team on his shoulders, both as a leader and on the court. So on and off the court. As for the fans, I think the fans have actually been a really big part of this. Like even Magic Johnson, owner of the LA Dodgers, and he was giving major credit to the city of Toronto for how we're backing our team so much. And I think the fans have a lot to do with the success. We're not making it easy on Brooklyn. Brooklyn was the hottest team coming into the playoffs, and the Raptors haven't shut them down, but they've done a pretty good job of it so far.
Right. I mean, I think, the fans, I guess the Raptors in a way sort of were always neglected for a while. I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
people call them the Craptors
yeah,
because they weren't playing well. And with the Leafs just tanking this year,
yeah.
it's nice to have a team that's winning for once.
Yeah, it is nice to see them winning, and it's nice to see the city get behind them. I mean, I don't hate, it's good that they're behind them, but they should really be behind them the whole season, not just the playoffs. Like, you see a lot of these people that are just all of a sudden, when the We the North commercial came out, everyone's
Yes.
hashtagging We the North, We the North. They probably watched two Raptor games the entire season, which isn't a bad thing. Get behind your team. I really appreciate that. But I think people need to see that the Leafs are not a winner. They're really not. They might be next year. We can always hope, but history is telling us as of late they're not a winner. So I think we got to start getting behind our Raptors a little more, showing them the support they deserve because they're a good basketball team and they're a young basketball team too. So this could be potential. I'm not going to go as far as saying dynasty, but you could see them in the playoffs within the next 5 years. I'd say at least two or three other playoff appearances. So the Raptors are a team to look out for.
So I guess your prediction, do you think they'll beat Brooklyn and move on to the next round?
Uh, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they do. I don't know how they do with Miami. I think that might be a tough
Yeah.
series afterwards. I don't think they make it past Miami, but I'm going to say they take it. Yeah, even if they don't win in Brooklyn game 6, I think being in Toronto game 7, that crowd is not going to make it easy on Brooklyn. So I think, yeah, this is the Raptors series because of home court advantage.
Right. And of course, the poor Raptors, I feel terrible for them. It's sort of been a perfect storm for them in a way. They finally start doing well, the Leafs tank, so people start paying attention, whether or not they're bandwagoners or not. And
Yeah.
then two things happen. The first thing, you have this racist asshole with the
Yeah.
Clippers, Donald Sterling.
Yeah.
First, he distracts, pretty much everyone from any NBA team,
Yeah.
that's in the playoffs, and now we're just talking about his idiocy. So, obviously he's a racist idiot, but what do you make of the punishment that was handed down?
Oh, I cannot say enough about Commissioner Silver. He did a fantastic job. He's new on the job, and Donald Sterling is the longest tenured owner in the NBA. So that was not an easy decision for him to just ban him from the league because, seems to be a terrible person. He's a racist. It's not like this is the first time. He's had past occurrences with him being a racist. I think it's a great decision by Silver. There's no room for racism anywhere, let alone the NBA. Like, kudos to Silver on that because I think he handled it perfectly.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's always I found very odd about the Sterling thing is it sounds like everyone's known he's been a racist for a while.
Yeah.
Like when he was interviewing someone to be the coach in the 80s, his first question right out of the bat without even saying hi was just how are you going to teach these or how are you going to coach these N-words?
Yeah.
And like
And Yeah.
And people are pretty open about, telling stories like that. And then now finally, if you compare it to some of his past statements, some fairly tame stuff comes out.
Yeah.
And now everyone loses their mind. And I think that's what bothers a lot of people. And I think that's probably why Silver acted the way he did, because people were saying, like, well, is it just business as usual in the NBA? Is this kind of stuff tolerated?
Yeah. I think if Silver didn't put the ban on him, that would have spoke volumes. I think there would have been an outrage, because there's just no room for racism today. I mean, there shouldn't have ever been, but I mean, I think we should be past that point. And like, there's other owners. He's an owner of a team. There's other people that could come in and own the team and do just as well as he had as an owner without being a racist. So I think it was the best move for the league and for society in general.
Right. I mean, even if you take away his racism, they say, he's a slumlord, and
Yeah.
that he never really gave a damn about the team to begin with.
No, yeah, I agree.
But anyway, and of course the other thing that's distracting from the Raptors' success, of course it breaks right when the Raptors are, when they were up, I guess, by about 26 points, and they looked like they were carrying that game away. Then we hear news that the mayor, again, is up to no good. There's a second crack video.
Yep.
And there's the recording of him saying that he wanted to, quote, jam Karen Stintz, and now he's off to rehab. So I feel bad for the Raptors.
Yeah, I really do, because, like you said, between Donald Sterling, between Rob Ford, there's a lot of the attention's getting off of them. But at the same time, they're a young, inexperienced team. That might be a blessing in disguise. I mean, if the media starts talking about the Raptors the way they talk about the Leafs, it's a young team with no experience with very little experience in the playoffs. They could maybe crack, maybe blow it. So maybe this whole Ford thing is maybe not necessarily a bad thing. It takes a little bit of pressure off them. The media is still going to be like on them, expecting them to win. But I think the mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, and his crack issues are more important than the Raptors getting past the Brooklyn Nets in the first round. So I think the attention that Ford is now gathering might end up helping the Raptors, kind of less pressure on them almost from the media.
Yeah. No, I think the Raptors, though, also got a bit of slack because we're all just so happy a Toronto team's in the playoffs and winning, that even if they got blown out, even if they got swept, I think we'd still be very happy.
Yeah, that Canadian attitude. Well, there's always next year.
Well, not even just always next year. It's like, well, at least they got into the playoffs. They got somewhere. But anyway, Nick, thank you very much for coming by and sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it. If the Raptors keep carrying on as they do, we'll have you back. And, of course, we'll talk about the Blue Jays another day, if they can ever win.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nick, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
I'm joined now by Emily Stachera, our associate editor here at CanCulture. She's written an article on this year's Hot Docs Festival, which is entering its 20th year. So, Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Hot Docs Festival and what it is?
Well, basically, the Hot Docs Festival is the biggest documentary festival in all of North America. And it's pretty much, this year, they're screening 197 documentary films, and it's submissions from all over the world. And pretty much it's just like a celebration of documentary talents, both Canadian and internationally. And they usually get the directors to come and other different kind of people to talk about the films. And they have panels. It's just kind of like a celebration of the documentary art form, which is a big thing in Canada.
Yeah, what are some of the big noteworthy Canadian documentaries that are this year's lineup?
One of the really, really big ones that's I really want to see, it looks really cool, is Super Duper Alice Cooper. And it's it's actually part of Hot Docs Live, where it's actually finished already. They did it on April 28th, I believe. But they basically they had the film, and they had a panel where Alice Cooper and the directors of the film answered questions and stuff. And it was basically broadcast all across Canada, in 45 different Cineplex theaters. But so that was really cool. I wish I could have seen that. But the film is pretty much, it's just a documentary of his life. It's just a rock and roll. They call it the first ever doc opera. So I guess it's just a really intense documentary about his life, and it's more. I don't think there's a lot of straight on interviews of him. I think it's a lot it's a lot of voiceovers, and they use animation almost to describe what he's talking about and stuff like that. I haven't actually seen the film, but that's what I've heard. And it sounds really cool. And on top of that, so that's Alice Cooper for one is Canadian, and then also the directors and stuff are Canadian for that one too. So that's a big one for Canada. And there's also one called Before the Last Curtain Falls, and it's by Canadian director Thomas Wallner, and he basically just follows these transgender like transvestite ballerinas in a Belgian production called Gardenia. It's a ballet, and the ballet pretty much just features all these really old, like probably like 60 and over transvestites in the golden year, like in just like the golden years of their life, and they're doing their last performance of this Gardenia production. So it's just them talking about their struggles as transvestite persons and stuff like that. So it sounds really cool, and that is actually it premiered on the 28th, but I believe there's future shows that you can go see if you want, for sure.
Right. And I understand that Big Bird and George Takei are coming to town.
Yeah. Let's see, when is that happening, I wonder? Yeah, well, basically, so I Am Big Bird, the Carol Spinney story, is premiering at Hot Docs, and the guy that played Big Bird, it was I'm not sure if he already came. I think it might have already happened, but he came and talked about the film, and basically it's pretty interesting. Like I never would have thought a documentary could have been made about this guy who played Big Bird in the Sesame Street show. Like no one ever would have ever thought that would make like an incredibly interesting story, but it's like one of the big headliners for this year's festival.
Right, yeah, well, the last time I heard about Big Bird, he was getting into a tussle with Mitt Romney over whether or not they were going to fund PBS.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense, because someone has to play those characters all these years.
Yeah, exactly,
and you never see their face.
Yeah, and you don't think about who it is. Like, it's just like, you just think of it as Big Bird. You don't think about the man behind the costume who's actually living his life. Same, he's also Oscar the Grouch in the show too.
Yeah.
So he plays both.
Yeah, I guess Big Bird's probably the more iconic. And then there's also George Takei, of course, from Star Trek, and of course he's been in the news a lot lately for his gay rights activism.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the documentary detailing his life.
Yeah, it's called To Be Takei, and he was also there talking. He also did a panel, which is like just a big part of the festival. It's just people talking about these films, and I think the documentary is basically just his life, like a biopic of his life, and his his struggles as not only like a Japanese man, like back in the day, trying to like in the film industry and TV industry, but also as a gay gay rights activist until this day, pretty much.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess this festival goes on, I guess, for a couple more days. It's
until May 4th.
May 4th, yeah. Yeah,
so
and we've got a whole slew, of course, of reviews on CanCulture, the website right now. We've got already one up, and a whole bunch are going to be coming over the next couple of days.
Yeah, we hopefully have a few, like, hopefully maybe one every day. We'll see. I know definitely a couple or one is going up tonight, so I'm excited about that.
Right, like we've got one up right now about Claude Jutra. Hope I'm saying that right. There's a new short film about his life and career. But anyway, Emily, thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem.
You can read her full primer on CanCulture.com. Alright, well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Be sure to visit our website, CanCulture.com, and go Raptors!